The blood trail followed Hannah James as she ran, crimson droplets marking her desperate path across the dusty Oklahoma landscape. Each breath was agony, each step a battle against unconsciousness, as the broken rib beneath her skin threatened to pierce her lung. The year was 1885, and in Stillwater, Oklahoma Territory, a woman alone had few allies and many enemies. Hannah had been running for what felt like hours, though the sun had barely moved in the cloudless sky. The pain had started as a dull ache after she'd fallen from the wagon, but now it had blossomed into something unbearable, a white-hot poker jabbing deeper with every labored breath. Her dress was torn and bloodied, her long auburn hair matted with sweat and dirt. Behind her, the sounds of pursuit had faded, but Hannah knew she couldn't stop. To stop was to die. The horizon wavered before her eyes as the ground beneath her feet seemed to tilt. Hannah stumbled, her legs finally betraying her as consciousness began to slip away. As she fell forward, strong arms caught her, preventing her from collapsing face first into the hard, packed earth. "Whoa there, miss," a deep voice said, the words filtering through the haze of pain that had become her world. "I've got you." Through half-lidded eyes, Hannah looked up to see a weathered face beneath a dusty Stetson, concern etched into features tanned by years under the western sun. The stranger's blue eyes were the last thing she saw before darkness claimed her. Tyler Rhodes had been tracking a stray calf when he spotted the woman running across his land. At first, he thought she might be a mirage, a trick of the heat and light. People didn't just appear on the fringes of his cattle ranch, especially not women who looked like they'd been through hell. When she began to fall, instinct took over, and he spurred his horse forward, dismounting in one fluid motion to catch her before she hit the ground. The woman was light in his arms, too light, and her breathing was shallow and labored. Tyler could see blood staining her dress, and the way she held herself suggested broken ribs. Whoever she was, she needed help fast. "Miss, can you hear me?" Tyler asked, but received no response. Her skin was hot to the touch, and her pulse raced beneath his fingers. With careful movements, he lifted her onto his horse, mounting behind her and cradling her unconscious form against his chest. He turned his mount toward the ranch house, keeping his pace steady to avoid jostling his injured passenger more than necessary. Tyler's ranch, the Double R, was modest by Oklahoma Territory standards, but it was his. He'd built it from nothing after coming west 5 years ago, leaving behind a life in Boston that held nothing for him after his parents died. The main house was solid if plain, with 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a small sitting room. As he approached, his foreman, Bill Hawkins, emerged from the barn. "Tyler, what in tarnation?" Bill called, rushing to help as Tyler carefully dismounted with the woman still in his arms. "Found her out by the north pasture," Tyler explained. "She's hurt bad, broken ribs from the looks of it. Get Doc Miller from town, fast as you can." Bill nodded, immediately heading for his horse while Tyler carried the unconscious woman into the house. He laid her gently on his bed, hesitating for a moment. He wasn't sure of the proper protocol for helping an injured woman he didn't know, but he couldn't just let her suffer. With careful movements, he loosened her collar and checked for other injuries. The broken rib was obvious from the discoloration visible through the tear in her dress, but Tyler was relieved to find no signs of gunshot wounds or knife cuts. Whatever had happened to her, at least she hadn't been shot. He fetched a bowl of cool water and a cloth, gently wiping the dirt and blood from her face. As he worked, the woman's eyes fluttered open, wide with fear as she realized she was in an unfamiliar place with a stranger. "Easy now," Tyler said, keeping his voice low and soothing. "You're safe. I found you out on my land. You've got a broken rib, at least one, maybe more. I've sent for the doctor." Hannah tried to sit up, gasping in pain as her injury protested the movement. "I can't stay here," she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "They'll come looking." Tyler frowned. "Who's looking for you?" "Henderson's men," she replied, eyes darting toward the window. "I escaped. I have to keep moving." "Henderson? Jasper Henderson?" Tyler asked, his expression darkening. Henderson was a cattle baron who owned half the county and thought he owned the other half too. His reputation for ruthlessness was well known. Hannah nodded weakly. "He wants to marry me, forced my father to agree when I refused." She trailed off, her breathing becoming more labored. "Save your strength," Tyler advised, adjusting the pillow beneath her head. "Henderson doesn't know where you are, and even if he comes looking, this is my land. You're under my protection now." Hannah searched his face, looking for deception but finding only sincerity. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." "My mother raised me to help those in need," Tyler said simply. "Now rest. Doc Miller will be here soon." Hannah wanted to argue, to insist she needed to keep running, but her body betrayed her as exhaustion pulled her back toward unconsciousness. The last thing she remembered was the gentle pressure of a cool cloth against her forehead and the comforting presence of the stranger who had saved her. Dr. Miller arrived an hour later, his medical bag in hand and a concerned expression on his face. Tyler led him to the bedroom where Hannah still slept fitfully. "Found her running across my north pasture," Tyler explained. "She collapsed before she could tell me much, but she mentioned Henderson's men were after her." Dr. Miller's bushy eyebrows rose. "Jasper Henderson, that's trouble, Tyler. The man has the sheriff in his pocket." "I'm aware," Tyler said grimly. "Just see to her injuries, Doc. I'll worry about Henderson if he shows up." The doctor nodded and set to work examining Hannah, who awoke with a start at his touch. "Easy, young lady," Dr. Miller soothed. "I'm a doctor. I need to check your ribs." Hannah reluctantly submitted to the examination, wincing as the doctor's practiced fingers probed her rib cage. After a thorough check, Dr. Miller straightened up with a sigh. 2 broken ribs, badly bruised but thankfully not puncturing anything vital. She's also suffering from exhaustion and dehydration. He turned to Tyler. "She needs rest, lots of fluids, and those ribs need to be bound. I'll do that now, but she shouldn't be moved for at least a week, preferably 2. Tyler nodded. "She can stay here as long as needed." The doctor gave him a shrewd look. "Henderson won't take kindly to you harboring his intended bride." "She's not his anything if she doesn't want to be," Tyler replied firmly. "And this is my land." Dr. Miller shook his head but didn't argue further. He showed Tyler how to properly bind Hannah's ribs, then left a bottle of laudanum for the pain. 2 drops in water when it gets bad, no more than 3 times a day, he instructed. "I'll check back in a few days." After the doctor left, Tyler sat beside Hannah's bed. She was awake now, her green eyes watching him warily. "Why is Henderson after you?" he asked gently. Hannah sighed, the movement causing her to wince. "My father owned the water rights to Stillwater Creek. Henderson needs that water for his cattle operation. When my father refused to sell, Henderson made him an offer my hand in marriage in exchange for the water rights and enough money to pay off our debts." "And your father agreed to this arrangement?" Tyler asked, trying to keep the judgment from his voice. Hannah's eyes flashed with a mixture of pain and anger. "He didn't have much choice. We were about to lose everything after the drought last year, but I refused. I told Henderson I wouldn't marry him if he was the last man on earth." Her lips twisted in a bitter smile. "He didn't take it well. Said he'd have me one way or another. So you ran." Hannah nodded. "Last night, one of Henderson's men caught me trying to leave. There was a struggle. He pushed me down the stairs. That's when I felt the rib break." but I managed to get away while he was checking if anyone had heard the commotion. Tyler's jaw tightened at the thought of someone manhandling this woman. "You're safe here, miss." "James, Hannah James," she supplied. "And you are Tyler Rhodes. This is my ranch, the Double R." He gestured to the room around them. "Not much, but it's home." Hannah studied him for a moment. "Why are you helping me, Mr. Rhodes? Henderson is powerful in these parts. You're risking a lot." Tyler shrugged. "Never did care much for bullies, and it's Tyler, please." "Tyler," Hannah repeated, a small smile touching her lips before her expression sobered. "Henderson won't stop looking. He doesn't like to lose, especially not to a woman who defied him." "Let him look," Tyler said, his voice hardening. "He sets foot on my property uninvited, he'll regret it." Hannah wanted to warn him further about the danger, but exhaustion was pulling at her again. Tyler noticed her eyelids drooping and stood. "Rest now. We can talk more when you're stronger." Hannah nodded sleepily, the laudanum the doctor had given her taking effect. As Tyler turned to leave, she caught his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. Tyler squeezed her hand gently before releasing it. "You're welcome, Miss James." "Hannah," she corrected softly as sleep claimed her once more. Tyler smiled to himself as he closed the bedroom door behind him. Hannah James was clearly a woman of spirit, despite her current condition. He admired her courage in defying a man like Henderson, even as he worried about what that defiance might bring down upon them both. In the kitchen, he found Bill waiting with coffee. "Doc says she'll be all right with rest," Tyler told him, "but there's a complication. She's running from Jasper Henderson." Bill whistled low. "That is a complication. What's her connection to him?" Tyler explained what Hannah had told him about Henderson's arrangement with her father and her subsequent escape. By the time he finished, Bill was shaking his head. "Henderson ain't gonna let this go, boss. Not his style." "I know," Tyler acknowledged. "Double the night watch for the next few weeks, and spread the word anyone rides onto Double R land who isn't invited, they get questioned." Bill nodded, understanding the unspoken instruction. They wouldn't shoot first, but they wouldn't be caught unprepared either. "What about the girl?" "Once she's healed up," Tyler hadn't thought that far ahead. "That'll be her decision, but until then she has sanctuary here." For 3 days, Hannah drifted in and out of consciousness as her body fought to heal. Tyler checked on her regularly, changing her bandages as doctor. Miller had shown him and coaxing her to drink water or broth when she was awake. On the 4th morning, he entered the bedroom to find her sitting up against the pillows, looking more alert than she had since her arrival. "Good morning," Tyler greeted her, pleased to see the improvement. "How are you feeling?" "Like I've been trampled by a buffalo," Hannah admitted with a weak smile. "But better than yesterday. Thank you for taking care of me." Tyler set down the tray he was carrying. "Eggs and biscuits. Nothing fancy, but it's hot." Hannah's stomach growled audibly at the sight of food, making her blush. "I didn't realize how hungry I was." "That's a good sign," Tyler said, helping her adjust the pillows so she could eat more comfortably. "Doc Miller says appetite returning means you're on the mend." As Hannah ate, Tyler filled her in on what had happened since she'd been at the ranch. No one had come looking yet, but Tyler wasn't foolish enough to think Henderson had given up. "I've been thinking," Hannah said after finishing her meal. "I can't impose on your hospitality indefinitely. Once I'm well enough to travel, I should move on." "Where would you go?" Tyler asked, genuinely curious. Hannah hesitated. "I have an aunt in Denver. I thought perhaps I could go to her." "That's a long journey for a woman alone," Tyler pointed out. "And Henderson has connections throughout the territory. He might have men watching the stagecoach routes and train stations." Hannah's shoulders slumped slightly. "I know, but I can't stay here and bring trouble to your doorstep. You've already done more than enough for a stranger." Tyler studied her for a moment. "You're not exactly a stranger anymore, Hannah, and I meant what I said. You have sanctuary here for as long as you need it." The sincerity in his voice made Hannah's throat tighten with unexpected emotion. It had been a long time since anyone had shown her such kindness without expecting something in return. "Thank you," she said softly. As the days passed, Hannah grew stronger. By the end of the first week, she was able to move around the bedroom without assistance, though her ribs still protested sudden movements. By the 10th day, she ventured out to the kitchen, where she insisted on helping with meals despite Tyler's protests. "I'm not an invalid anymore," she argued when he tried to shoo her back to bed. "And I'm going stir-crazy in that room. Please, let me do something useful." Tyler relented, and they fell into an easy routine. Hannah would prepare meals while Tyler handled the ranch business. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch if the weather was fair, talking until the stars came out. Hannah learned that Tyler had come west after his parents died, leaving behind a promising career as an architect to try his hand at ranching. In turn, she told him about growing up as the only child of a widowed rancher who had dreamed of building a horse breeding operation before drought and debt crushed those aspirations. "He wasn't a bad man," Hannah said one evening as they watched the sunset paint the western sky in brilliant hues. "Just desperate and proud. He couldn't bear the thought of losing everything my mother had helped him build." "That still doesn't give him the right to sell you to Henderson," Tyler replied, his jaw tightening. Hannah sighed. "No, it doesn't, but I understand why he felt he had no choice." They were interrupted by the sound of approaching horses. Tyler was on his feet immediately, hand moving to the revolver at his hip as Bill rode up with a stranger in tow. "Tyler," Bill called, dismounting. "This here's Jake Turner. Says he's got news about Henderson." The stranger, a wiry man with a nervous demeanor, nodded respectfully to Tyler. "Mr. Rhodes, heard you might be interested in some information." Tyler eyed him cautiously. "What kind of information?" "Henderson's offering $100 for information leading to the return of Miss James," Turner said, glancing at Hannah, who had gone pale. "And he's hired some rough characters to do the retrieving." "Why are you telling us this?" Tyler asked, still suspicious. Turner shifted uncomfortably. "Henderson's men burned out my brother last year when he wouldn't sell his land. I don't owe that man any loyalty." Tyler considered this, then nodded. "I appreciate the warning. Bill, see that Mr. Turner gets a hot meal and a place to sleep tonight." As Bill led Turner toward the bunkhouse, Hannah turned to Tyler, her expression troubled. "He's not going to stop, is he?" "No," Tyler said honestly. "Men like Henderson don't like losing what they consider theirs." Hannah wrapped her arms around herself, wincing slightly at the pressure on her healing ribs. "I've put you and your men in danger. Maybe I should—" "Don't say it," Tyler interrupted. "You're not going anywhere, not until you're fully healed and we have a proper plan." His voice softened as he saw the worry in her eyes. "Hannah, I've dealt with men like Henderson before. He's not invincible, just used to getting his way because people are afraid to stand up to him." Hannah wanted to believe him, but fear had taken root in her heart. That night, sleep eluded her as she lay awake listening to the sounds of the ranch settling for the night. The thought of Henderson's men coming for her, of Tyler or his ranch hands being hurt because of her, was unbearable. By dawn, Hannah had made a decision. She would leave, make her way to Stillwater and catch the next stagecoach heading north. She wouldn't tell Tyler, knowing he would try to stop her. It was better this way, a clean break that would keep him safe from Henderson's vengeance. Moving quietly, Hannah dressed in clothes Tyler had procured for her, simple work clothes that were far more practical than the torn dress she'd arrived in. She gathered what few possessions she had, and penned a brief note thanking Tyler for his kindness and explaining why she had to leave. Then, with one last look around the room that had been her sanctuary, she slipped out the back door into the gray light of dawn. Hannah had made it halfway to the main road when the sound of hoofbeats behind her made her heart sink. She turned to see Tyler approaching on horseback, his expression a mixture of relief and exasperation. "Going somewhere?" he asked as he reined in beside her. Hannah sighed. "How did you know?" "Bill saw you heading out and woke me," Tyler explained, dismounting. "Were you really going to leave without saying goodbye?" "I left a note," Hannah said defensively, then softened. "I thought it would be easier this way for both of us." Tyler shook his head. "Easier for who?" "Not for me, worrying about whether Henderson's men caught up to you. Not for you trying to travel alone while still healing." "I can't stay, Tyler," Hannah insisted. "Henderson won't stop looking, and I won't have your blood on my hands when he finds me." "So your solution is to make yourself an easier target," Tyler challenged. "Hannah, think about it. On your own, with limited funds and nowhere to go except a distant relative who might not even take you, and how long before Henderson's men find you?" Hannah bit her lip, knowing he was right but unwilling to concede. "What's the alternative?" "Stay here indefinitely, waiting for Henderson to bring his fight to your doorstep." Tyler took a step closer. "The alternative is we face this together. I have friends in the territorial government who aren't in Henderson's pocket. We can petition for an investigation into his business practices. I'm not the only rancher he's tried to squeeze out." "That could take months," Hannah protested. "Yes," Tyler acknowledged, "but in the meantime, you're safer here with people who will protect you than out there alone." Hannah looked up at him, really looked at him, taking in the determination in his blue eyes and the stubborn set of his jaw. In the 2 weeks she'd known Tyler Rhodes, she had come to respect his quiet strength and unwavering sense of justice. And if she was honest with herself, there was something more growing between them, something she hadn't wanted to acknowledge for fear of the pain that would come when they inevitably parted ways. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "Why risk everything for someone you barely know?" Tyler's expression softened. "I think you know why, Hannah." The simple statement hung in the air between them, laden with unspoken feelings. Hannah's heart pounded in her chest as Tyler reached out to take her hand. "Come back to the ranch," he urged. "We'll figure this out together." Hannah hesitated, torn between her fear of bringing trouble to Tyler's door and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but promise me something." "What's that?" "If things get too dangerous, if Henderson brings his fight here, promise me you'll let me go." Tyler's grip on her hand tightened. "I promise I'll keep you safe, whatever it takes." It wasn't exactly the promise she'd asked for, but Hannah knew it was the only one he would give. With a sigh that was part resignation and part relief, she allowed him to help her mount his horse for the ride back to the ranch. They had just reached the edge of the ranch property when a shot rang out, the bullet kicking up dust yards ahead of them. Tyler immediately pulled his horse to a stop, pushing Hannah down against the animal's neck as he scanned the terrain for the shooter. "Stay down," he ordered, drawing his revolver as 3 riders emerged from a copse of trees to their right. "Rhodes," one of the men called. "We know you've got the James woman. Hand her over and there won't be any trouble." Tyler's expression hardened. "You're trespassing on private property. Turn around and ride out while you still can." The leader of the group, a man with a pockmarked face and cold eyes, spat on the ground. "Henderson wants his bride to be. We ain't leaving without her." "She's not Henderson's anything," Tyler replied, his voice steady despite the danger. "Now get off my land before I put holes in you." The standoff lasted for a tense moment before the leader nodded to his companions. As they reached for their weapons, a shot rang out from behind Tyler and Hannah. The leader's hat flew off his head and he jerked back in surprise. "Next one won't miss," Bill's voice called from a ridge to their left, where he had taken up position with a rifle. Two more of Tyler's ranch hands appeared on horseback to their right, effectively surrounding Henderson's men. The leader's face contorted with anger, but he wasn't foolish enough to take on 4 armed men. "This ain't over, Rhodes," he snarled. "Henderson will hear about this." "Tell him whatever you want," Tyler replied coolly. "Just get moving." With venomous glares, the men turned their horses and rode off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Only when they were well out of sight did Tyler relax his grip on his revolver. "You all right?" he asked Hannah, who nodded shakily. "Let's get back to the house. We need to talk." The encounter with Henderson's men changed everything. That evening, after ensuring the ranch was secure with extra men on watch, Tyler sat down with Hannah in the kitchen. "Henderson knows you're here now," he said without preamble. "Those men will report back, and he'll likely come himself next time, possibly with the sheriff in tow." Hannah's stomach knotted with fear and guilt. "I'm sorry, Tyler. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent by leaving." Tyler reached across the table to take her hand. "Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault, but we do need a plan." "What kind of plan?" Hannah asked warily. Tyler hesitated, then said, "Marriage." Hannah blinked, certain she had misheard. "Excuse me." "If we were married," Tyler explained, a slight flush coloring his cheeks, "Henderson would have no claim on you, not even the tenuous one he's asserting now. As your husband, I would have legal authority to protect you from his advances." Hannah stared at him, stunned by the suggestion. You want to marry me, to protect me from Henderson?" Tyler's flush deepened. "That's part of it, yes, but Hannah." He took a deep breath. "These past 2 weeks getting to know you, I've come to care for you, more than I expected to. I know it's sudden and perhaps not the romantic proposal a woman dreams of, but yes," Hannah interrupted, surprising herself as much as Tyler. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "Yes," a small smile curved Hannah's lips. "Yes, I'll marry you." Tyler searched her face, looking for any sign of hesitation or fear. "Are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured." Hannah's smile widened as certainty filled her. She had known Tyler Rhodes for only 2 weeks, but in that time, he had shown her more kindness, respect, and genuine care than any man she had ever met. And if she was being honest with herself, the attraction she felt toward him had been growing stronger with each passing day. "I'm sure," she said softly. "It may be sudden, but I know what I feel, and right now I feel like marrying you would make me very happy, regardless of the circumstances that brought us together." The joy that spread across Tyler's face made Hannah's heart skip a beat. He rose from his chair and came around the table, taking both her hands in his and pulling her gently to her feet. "Hannah James," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I promise to protect you, provide for you, and cherish you for as long as we both live. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" "I will," Hannah whispered, tears pricking her eyes as Tyler leaned down to press a tender kiss to her lips, their first. The next morning, Tyler rode into Stillwater to speak with the judge about performing the ceremony as soon as possible. He returned with news that the judge would be available the following day. He also brought a simple gold band he'd purchased from the general store, nothing fancy, but the best available on short notice. "Are you nervous?" Tyler asked as they sat on the porch that evening, watching the sunset. Hannah considered the question. "About marrying you? No. About Henderson's reaction when he finds out. A little." Tyler squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Henderson can bluster all he wants, but once we're legally married, his claim on you is void. And I've sent telegrams to my contacts in the territorial government. They're already looking into his business dealings." Hannah leaned her head against his shoulder, marveling at how natural it felt to be close to him. I never expected this when I ran from Henderson's men that day. I thought I was running away from one life, not toward another. Tyler smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Life has a funny way of working out sometimes. The wedding took place the following afternoon in the judge's office in Stillwater. Hannah wore a simple blue dress Tyler had purchased for her, with wildflowers in her hair that Bill's wife had arranged that morning. Tyler looked handsome in his best shirt and vest, his dark hair neatly combed and his normally weathered face freshly shaved. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Tyler kissed Hannah with a tenderness that made her knees weak. As they signed the marriage certificate, Hannah felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since before her father's arrangement with Henderson. They were just leaving the judge's office when a commotion in the street caught their attention. A group of riders had pulled up outside the sheriff's office across the way, with Jasper Henderson himself dismounting from a magnificent black stallion. "Well, well," a cold voice called. "If it isn't the runaway bride." Hannah froze as Henderson strode toward them, flanked by two of his men. He was a large man with a prosperous belly and an expensive suit, his salt and pepper hair slicked back beneath a pristine hat. His eyes were small and calculating, fixed on Hannah with a possessive gleam that made her skin crawl. Tyler stepped in front of Hannah protectively. "Henderson." Henderson's gaze shifted to Tyler, contempt evident in his expression. "Rhodes, I understand you've been harboring my property." "Hannah is not your property," Tyler replied evenly. "She never was." Henderson's lip curled. "Her father and I had an arrangement. She knows her duty." "My father had no right to promise me to you," Hannah said, finding her voice as she stepped up beside Tyler. "And I have no obligation to honor a bargain I never agreed to." Henderson's face darkened with anger. "You ungrateful—" "I'd watch my words if I were you," Tyler interrupted, his hand moving casually toward his revolver. "You're speaking to my wife." For a moment, Henderson looked as though he'd been slapped. "Wife," he repeated incredulously. Tyler nodded toward the judge's office behind them. "Just made it official. Judge Prescott performed the ceremony." Henderson's face flushed with rage as he realized the implications. As Hannah's husband, Tyler now had legal authority over her, nullifying any claim Henderson might have asserted based on his arrangement with her father. "You think this changes anything?" Henderson snarled. "A hasty marriage won't save either of you. I own this town. I own the sheriff. One word from me, and Rhodes here will be arrested on any charge I care to invent." "That would be unwise," a new voice interjected. They turned to see a tall, distinguished man in a well-tailored suit approaching from the direction of the telegraph office. "Jasper Henderson, I presume." Henderson eyed the newcomer suspiciously. "Who's asking?" The man produced a badge from his jacket pocket. "Marshal Robert Hayes, Territorial Law Enforcement. I've been investigating reports of corruption and intimidation in Stillwater. Your name keeps coming up." Henderson's confidence faltered momentarily before he recovered. "Whatever you've heard is lies spread by jealous competitors." Marshal Hayes smiled thinly. "Is that so? Then you won't mind accompanying me to discuss these matters further. We have a lot to talk about: water rights manipulation, intimidation of smaller ranchers, and now allegations of forced marriage arrangements." "This is absurd," Henderson blustered. "Sheriff Davis will vouch for me." "Sheriff Davis has been relieved of his duties pending investigation," Hayes replied coolly. "Now, will you come voluntarily, or do I need to make this official?" The standoff lasted only moments before Henderson's shoulders slumped in defeat. With a venomous glare at Tyler and Hannah, he allowed himself to be escorted away by the marshal and his deputies. As they watched Henderson being led toward the marshal's office, Hannah released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Is it over?" she asked softly. Tyler wrapped an arm around her waist. "Not entirely. There will be investigations, testimonies, but Henderson's power is broken. He won't be threatening anyone for a long while." Relief washed over Hannah, along with a wave of exhaustion as the tension of the past weeks finally began to dissipate. "Take me home, Tyler," she said, leaning against him. Tyler smiled down at her, love shining in his eyes as he bent to kiss her forehead. "As you wish, Mrs. Rhodes." The ride back to the Double R was peaceful, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the prairie. Hannah rode beside Tyler, her new wedding band catching the sunlight as they discussed their future together. "We'll need to expand the house," Tyler mused as the ranch came into view. "Add another bedroom or two." Hannah raised an eyebrow. "Planning ahead, are we?" Tyler grinned. "I've always wanted a family, children running around the ranch, learning to ride and rope." The thought sent a pleasant warmth through Hannah's chest. "I'd like that too. But let's take things one step at a time. We've only been married for a few hours." Tyler laughed, reaching across to take her hand. "We have all the time in the world now." As they approached the ranch, they were greeted by cheers and applause from Tyler's ranch hands, who had decorated the porch with wildflowers and ribbons. Bill's wife, Martha, had prepared a wedding feast, and someone had even procured a fiddle for dancing later. "Welcome home, Mrs. Rhodes," Bill called, raising a cup in toast as they dismounted. Hannah smiled, overwhelmed by the genuine welcome and acceptance. These people had protected her, a stranger, simply because Tyler had asked them to. Now they were celebrating her marriage to their boss with the same enthusiasm they might show a longtime friend. The evening passed in a blur of food, music, and congratulations. As darkness fell, lanterns were lit, and the yard in front of the house became an impromptu dance floor. Tyler led Hannah in a waltz, holding her carefully to avoid jarring her still healing ribs. "Happy?" he asked softly as they swayed to the music. Hannah looked up at her husband, this man who had caught her when she was falling and had stood by her side against all threats. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she replied truthfully. Later that night, as they stood alone on the porch watching the stars, Hannah turned to Tyler with a thoughtful expression. "You know, I never thanked you properly for saving my life that day." Tyler pulled her gently against his side. "You don't need to thank me, Hannah. Finding you was the best thing that ever happened to me, broken rib and all." Hannah laughed softly. "It sounds almost romantic when you put it that way." "It is romantic," Tyler insisted. "You were running for your life, and I was right where I needed to be to catch you. If that's not fate, I don't know what is." Hannah couldn't argue with that logic. Leaning up on tiptoe, she pressed a kiss to his lips. "I love you, Tyler Rhodes." His arms tightened around her. "I love you too, Hannah Rhodes." The name still sounded new to her ears, but it felt right, as though she had always been meant to bear it. As Tyler led her back into the house, their house now, Hannah knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them together. Over the next few months, Hannah and Tyler settled into married life, while the territorial authorities conducted their investigation into Jasper Henderson's affairs. As more people came forward with complaints against the cattle baron, the case against him grew stronger. By winter, Henderson had been indicted on multiple charges of fraud, intimidation, and corruption. With Henderson's influence diminished, many of the smaller ranchers he had threatened began to reclaim their independence. The atmosphere in Stillwater changed, becoming more open and cooperative as people realized they no longer had to fear reprisals for speaking out. For Hannah and Tyler, life on the Double R flourished. Tyler's cattle operation expanded, and Hannah put her knowledge of horses to good use, starting a small breeding program that showed promise. They worked side by side, building their ranch and their life together with equal parts determination and love. In the spring, almost a year after Tyler had found Hannah running across his land, they received news that Jasper Henderson had been convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The same day, Hannah discovered she was expecting their first child. A son, Tyler predicted confidently as they sat on the porch that evening, his hand resting gently on Hannah's still flat stomach. Hannah smiled indulgently. Or a daughter. Would you be disappointed with a girl? Tyler looked scandalized by the suggestion. Of course not. Boy or girl, this child will be loved beyond measure. And spoiled rotten if Bill and Martha have anything to say about it, Hannah added with a laugh. The older couple had appointed themselves honorary grandparents to the coming baby, already planning all the ways they would dote on the child. As the months passed, and Hannah's pregnancy progressed, they expanded the house as planned, adding 2 bedrooms and enlarging the kitchen. Tyler proved to be attentive to Hannah's needs, insisting she rest when she tried to do too much and good-naturedly enduring her occasional mood swings. The baby arrived on a crisp autumn day, after a labor that left Hannah exhausted but triumphant. Tyler paced anxiously outside the bedroom while Dr. Miller and Martha attended to the birth. When the doctor finally invited him in, Tyler rushed to Hannah's side, his eyes wide with wonder as he beheld the tiny bundle in her arms. "Meet your son," Hannah said softly, her face glowing with love and pride despite her fatigue. Tyler carefully took the swaddled infant, tears welling in his eyes as he gazed at his son's tiny features. "He's perfect," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Just like his mother." They named him Thomas after Tyler's father. As he grew from infant to toddler, it became clear he had inherited his mother's spirit and his father's steady determination. By his 2nd birthday, Thomas was already insisting on helping with ranch chores, trailing after Tyler with an earnestness that made everyone smile. The year Thomas turned 3, Hannah gave birth to twins, a boy they named William and a girl they called Elizabeth. The Double R Ranch house, once a lonely bachelor's dwelling, now rang with the laughter and occasional squabbles of 3 energetic children. "Sometimes I can hardly believe this is my life," Hannah confessed to Tyler one evening as they watched their children playing in the yard. "If you hadn't found me that day." Tyler squeezed her hand. "But I did find you, and I've been thanking my lucky stars ever since." Hannah leaned against his shoulder, contentment filling her heart. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't been running across your land that day? If our paths had never crossed?" Tyler shook his head. "No, because I believe we were meant to find each other one way or another. Maybe not with a broken rib involved, but somehow." Hannah laughed. "The broken rib was certainly memorable, not an experience I'd care to repeat, but it did lead me to you. And I caught you," Tyler reminded her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I'll always catch you, Hannah." It was a promise he had kept faithfully through the years, being her strength when she needed it, her partner in all things, her constant support through life's challenges and joys. The broken rib that had once caused her such pain had long since healed, leaving only the faintest twinge during cold weather to remind her of that desperate flight across the Oklahoma prairie. That evening, as they tucked their children into bed, Hannah found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had been running from a future she couldn't accept, only to find one beyond her wildest dreams. With Tyler and their children, she had built a life filled with love, purpose, and happiness. As they stood in the doorway watching their sleeping children, Tyler pressed a gentle kiss to Hannah's temple. "Happy, Mrs. Rhodes," Hannah turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his cheek. Completely, Mr. Rhodes. And she was. The woman who had once run across the prairie with a broken rib, desperate and alone, was now surrounded by family, secure in her husband's love and the life they had created together. She had been running from a man who saw her as property, only to be caught by one who saw her as a treasure beyond price. In the years that followed, the Double R thrived under Tyler and Hannah's careful stewardship. Their children grew strong and capable, each finding their own paths while remaining connected to the land and legacy their parents had built. The story of how their parents met became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. "Tell us again how you found Mama." Young Elizabeth would beg her father, her eyes wide with wonder at the tale of rescue and romance. And Tyler would gather the children close, his voice dropping dramatically as he began. "It was a hot summer day when I spotted a beautiful woman running across our north pasture." Hannah would listen, shaking her head at his embellishments, but smiling at the core truth of the story that sometimes the greatest blessings come from the most unexpected circumstances. Her broken rib had healed long ago, but the love that had begun that day continued to grow stronger with each passing year. As Hannah and Tyler celebrated their 20th wedding anniversary surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and friends, she reflected on the unlikely path that had led her to this moment. She had been running away that fateful day, but in reality, she had been running straight toward her future, toward the man who would catch her when she fell and stand beside her through all of life's joys and sorrows. "To 20 more years," Tyler proposed, raising his glass in a toast as they celebrated under the stars on the ranch that had become home to generations of Rhodes. "To 20 more and beyond," Hannah replied, her heart full as she clinked her glass against his. The broken rib that had once caused her such pain had become the beginning of her greatest joy, a reminder that sometimes what seems like our darkest moment can lead us to the brightest future, if only we have the courage to keep running toward it.